I am a llama eating yum yum yum. Seriously, imagine hearing that shouted at the top of a child's lungs by a deeply sleep-deprived toddler. If you spent any time around young kids, you know this kind of chaotic, imaginative rant is literally a daily occurrence. But while it might look like pure, unfiltered madness on the surface, there's actually a whole lot more happening beneath that pretend llama exterior. Which brings us to a fascinating question. What can a pretend llama, or a game of make-believe hotel, or even playing with a magic piece of asparagus, actually teach us about parenting? Well, as you'll see, these incredibly silly games are actually a Trojan horse. They're packed full of profound life lessons, developmental milestones, and real strategies for surviving the everyday chaos of family life. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the hidden rules of play, unlocking family life. We're going to look closely at the beautiful and, let's be honest, sometimes utterly exhausting chaos of family dynamics. We'll use some hilarious, incredibly relatable moments to understand how play is the absolute ultimate tool for both kids and parents. Section 1. Why boring things matter. Preparation and rules. Now, have you ever felt like the boring parent who just ruins all the spontaneous fun? Well, let's contrast two different approaches here. On the left, we've got the fun parent, Dad. He takes the kids to the pool completely on a whim. Sounds great, right? Well, the result is he forgets the sunscreen, the rashies, the floaties, the goggles, the toys, the food, and yep, even the towels. So he's forced to keep the kids shivering in this tiny, shrinking, shady part of the pool just because they have zero sun protection. Then on the right, we have the boring parent, Mom. She gets labeled a fuss spot for making everyone brush their teeth and actually pack a bag. But when the family is freezing, starving, and totally miserable, who shows up with the bag of essential gear? Mom. When Mom arrives like an absolute superhero with dry towels and snacks, she drops this perfect thesis statement. Boring things are important sometimes. Without that basic preparation, those unglamorous, tedious tasks, the fun inevitably just descends into chaos and discomfort. So, preparation is one thing. But what about behavioral rules? What actually happens when we decide to abandon the boring rules entirely? To figure this out, we can look at a game involving a magic piece of asparagus, where the basic household mandate of use your manners is completely thrown out the window. And wow, this brilliantly illustrates the absolute pandemonium that follows. Through this magic asparagus game, the family members are transformed into wild animals. Dad becomes a walrus who absolutely won't sit in his chair, Mom turns into a chicken making a huge mess, and then a mouse chewing on toys, and Bingo becomes a squawking parrot. It literally escalates to the point where the parents, now acting as a pack of hungry lions, are chasing the neighbor across the lawn. This wild visual ties directly back to a very relatable parenting quote from earlier that exact same morning. When asked why kids have to use manners and not, eat with their hands or chew on toys, the answer is so simple. Because we're not animals. The rules, while totally tedious for kids to learn and definitely exhausting for parents to enforce, are the literal boundaries preventing our homes from becoming an actual zoo. Section 2. Finding your voice. Setting healthy play boundaries. During physical or imaginative play, kids are constantly testing limits. Take this incredibly vulnerable moment from Bingo. While playing a game on a giant yoga ball with her dad, she gets bumped just a bit too hard. But instead of telling him to stop, she just walks away sad. When asked why she didn't use her big girl bark to tell her daddy was being too rough, she confesses, "I don't have a very good big girl bark." It's such a profound moment, really showing how difficult it is for children to advocate for their own physical boundaries. To solve this, her dad uses a brilliant psychological tool to help her find that voice by breaking the physical play down into manageable steps. Step 1. A gentle bounce on the yoga ball. Is this okay? Yes. Step 2. A medium bounce. Is this okay? Yes. Step 3. A big bounce. Too rough. By isolating these intensity levels, he gives her a really safe framework to clearly communicate her physical limits. He's teaching her that her voice actually has the power to control her environment. But remember, boundaries aren't just physical, they're creative too. Let's look at the pretend hotel game. Here, we see a total clash of creative visions between siblings. Bluey is running a very strict pretend hotel and needs her sister to be her obedient hotel helper. But Bingo, she doesn't want to be a helper, she wants to play a character she just invented called the Crazy Pillow. So the absolutely crucial point here is how this conflict gets resolved. When Bluey insists on absolute control and just bosses her sister around, Bingo simply quits. The workforce goes on strike, and the game completely falls apart. However,
When Bluey learns to compromise and allows Bingo to inject her crazy pillow idea into the hotel narrative, the fun continues and the game becomes even better. Shared play really requires relinquishing that absolute control and making space for others.
Section 3. The value of rest. Navigating exhaustion and solitude.
Navigating all of these rules, boundaries, and compromises is incredibly draining. First, let's look at the kids. Remember our pretend llama from the beginning? Let's humorously define sleep deprivation in children. It's the state of a child skipping a nap and turning into a feral, chip-stealing flamingo. During a sleepover, Cousin Muffin is so tired she acts like a drunken patron at a pretend restaurant, steals imaginary chips, runs from the pretend police, and hides in a sleeping bag claiming to be a flamingo.
But rather than just getting angry at this completely erratic behavior, the adults in the room recognize the root cause. Her father explains, Muffin is right in the middle of stopping that second little sleep during the day. By understanding that this chaos is really just a biological developmental transition, a dropped nap, the parents can navigate the meltdown with empathy rather than total frustration.
Now, we easily accept that children need sleep to function, right? But what about the parents' need for rest? Parents don't just need physical sleep, they have a critical, and honestly often ignored, need for mental space and solitude.
This is so beautifully captured in a moment at the beach. Surrounded by a chaotic family outing, Mom makes a simple but profound choice. She decides to separate from her family and walk down the beach completely alone. She seeks quiet time, observing the crabs, avoiding the jellyfish, and just looking at the pelicans. She deliberately steps away from the constant noise and the unending demands of parenting just to recharge her own battery.
When her daughter later asks her why she likes walking by herself, Mom gives this incredibly unapologetic truth. I'm not sure, actually. I just do. It's a wonderful, validating statement for anyone watching. You don't need some grand philosophical reason to want 5 minutes to yourself. Desiring personal space and quiet is a perfectly healthy, vital part of surviving parenthood.
And honestly, the best part? By modeling this need for solitude, she passes down a vital life skill. Her daughter, playing a game of Little Mermaid, bravely follows her mother's footsteps down the long stretch of beach. Upon finally reaching her mom, she realizes that she too actually loves walking by herself. She learns the deeply valuable skill of being independent and really enjoying her own company.
Section 4. The Masterclass of Play.
What we've seen today is truly a masterclass of play. On the surface, sure, these are stories about magic asparagus, crazy pillows, and feral flamingos. But just beneath that wild surface, these games masterfully hide absolutely critical lessons. They teach children about their boundaries, they remind parents why the boring preparation matters, and they validate the universal need for rest and self-care. Play isn't just a distraction. It's literally the laboratory where life skills are forged. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Next time the kids in your life want to play a wild, nonsensical game, what hidden lessons will you discover in the beautiful chaos? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.